For 12 years, my family shut me out. Then Mom insisted I give both my kidneys to my brother. When I said no, she accused me of trying to K*LL him. What would you do if your family, who ignored you for 12 years, suddenly showed up on your doorstep, begging for your organs, and then called you a murderer when you said no? Because that's exactly what my own mother did. She thought I was selfish for not giving my brother, Ethan, both of my kidneys. Both. Can you believe it? She cried these phony tears in my living room, accusing me of killing him, claiming I was hoarding undeserved organs. She even said, right to my face, "You have 2 healthy kidneys. Ethan has none. You could save him without any harshness right now." But here's the thing. Ethan wasn't dying. And the story of how we got here? Well, it's a long one. Ethan's kidneys were shot, completely ruined, after 12 years of daily vodka use. He started at 18 and just never stopped. And guess who bought him his first bottle? My mom. Her reasoning? Boys should practice liquor handling. Seriously. So, when doctors at 28 told her Ethan's kidneys were failing, she thought they were exaggerating. Then, when he needed his first dialysis at 33, she accused them of neglecting him. By 35, both his kidneys were gone. He needed a transplant, or he'd die within a year. My mom wasn't a match. My dad's kidneys weren't good enough. But mine? Mine were perfect. So, Mom came to me demanding that I give him one. One isn't enough, she said. His body is weak. He needs both to really succeed. Otherwise, he'll be on permanent dialysis. I'm 30 years old. She actually wanted me to spend the next 45 years tethered to a machine. She said, "You're stronger than Ethan. You're capable." Oh, the irony. Let me tell you about her amazing parenthood. Ethan was her golden boy. At 18, he got a car. I got nothing. I paid for everything. He quit college. I worked 3 jobs to pay off my student loans. He got bailed out of jail 3 times. Me. I was evicted at 20 when I got pregnant. That pregnancy, it failed. And Mom? She said my carelessness meant I deserved it. Still, I became a nurse. I worked my tail off, paying for school with those 3 jobs. I built a life, independent from a family that had completely disregarded me, until they needed something. My mother hadn't called me in 12 years. Neither had Ethan. I'd learn about family events on Facebook. I wasn't invited to Ethan's wedding, Mom's 55th birthday, or Dad's retirement party. But now they needed my organs. Now I was family again. And when I refused, the harassment began. Mom called my work, claiming I was having a mental collapse. So, I called my landlord and told him I was unstable. I even told my partner I was going to murder my brother, just to see if she'd leave me alone. She didn't. She showed up at my hospital, right in the middle of my shift, shouting, "Everyone look at the nurse who won't save her brother. She won't split kidneys." Security had to escort her out. She came back the next day. For 2 straight weeks, she texted, she called, she visited. "You're murdering Ethan. You're selfish." Was she unaware Ethan wasn't actually going to die? Not really. He was on dialysis 3 times a week. It was tolerable. Not nice, sure, but people live for decades on dialysis. I knew this. I worked with patients, 70-year-olds who had been on machines for 25 years. But Ethan? He just wanted peace. And Mom? She wanted to restore her ideal baby without those pesky machines. She was determined to bind me to them instead. So, I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I called Ethan. "Do you know Mom needs both my kidneys?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Dialysis would last forever. You understand? You're young. Your adaptability would increase. Free of kids." Then he said, "I may not you." Tried and failed. He actually brought up my miscarriage, saying it disqualified me for organs. That was it. I quit. I contacted Ethan's transplant team, telling them about Mom's texts, about her demanding both kidneys. The lead surgeon's face darkened. "She wants both contributions? Illegal. We'd never agree." Mom had told Ethan the team would do it if I consented. A complete lie. The surgeon immediately called Mom and Ethan. I put her on speaker. My mother shouted at the surgeon, Emma, for intruding in family business. Emma calmly explained that federal law barred living donors from giving both kidneys, as it would require them to be on dialysis forever. Mom yelled, convinced Emma was lying to protect the hospital from a lawsuit. She screamed that Emma was purchased by insurance firms. But Emma, professional and seemingly bewildered rather than outraged, simply relayed the facts. Live donors can only donate 1 kidney. It's federal law. My mother cried. She cried those phony tears she always did. But underneath it, I heard terror. A stubborn doctor had ruined her plan. Emma gently clarified that Ethan didn't need both kidneys. A healthy living donor kidney was perfectly sufficient. My mom had been completely misled about the medical needs. Mom just wept more, hanging up before Emma could even finish. Emma apologized to me across her desk for my mother's behavior. She told me the transplant team was documenting everything in case my family pressured me again. My file was flagged. No one could discuss donation with me without the team present. As I slumped in a chair, taking it all in, Emma filled out forms and took notes. For 2 weeks. Mom had made me feel awful, telling me I was selfish, unpleasant, and had intentionally killed Ethan. She'd told Dad and half the family I was insane. But here, a 25-year-old doctor just confirmed Mom's request was unlawful. I wasn't insane. I wasn't rude. I was refusing a surgery no U.S. hospital would ever accept. Driving home, my hands were steady for the first time in weeks. I felt lighter with expert approval. Out of my mind. Daniel, my partner, had Chinese food waiting on the couch. He stood up when I walked in, and I told him about Emma and the call. I started weeping, not sobbing, just stress relief. He held me so tight I could barely breathe. I cried into his shoulder, splattering tears on his shirt without a word. After I calmed down, we ate, and he held my hand. At 11 o'clock that night, my phone exploded. Mom's texts were even harder now. She said I lied, that I incited the physicians to hate her, that I poisoned them against Ethan with lies. She accused me of wishing my sibling dead to impress my parents. She threatened to disclose things. Sometimes 3 or 4 messages alternated fury and guilt. Ethan sobbed for you, she claimed. My daughter let Dad down. You'll regret this when Ethan dies, and you'll be responsible. Daniel just screenshot all of them. He put each one, with date and time, into a harassment documentation folder on my laptop. I watched him work, my hands shaking. Seeing the grit of her words, Mom's opinions suddenly seemed clearer. Daniel highlighted that her actions justified my refusal. A kind mother wouldn't let one child jeopardize her health for another. Loving moms wouldn't say this. The next morning, before my shift, Sophie, my supervisor, called me into her office. The door closed. She told me hospital security reported my mother tried to enter the dialysis unit around 9 o'clock last night. Mom had demanded the security guard teach staff medical ethics and family loyalty. The guard, who recognized her from before, blocked her. Mom fought for 20 minutes before leaving. Sophie showed me the security report, and I just felt bad. Sophie said the facility values personnel safety. Security had detected my mother's arrival. How are you? Do you need schedule changes? Someone was finally being gracious about this disaster. I nearly sobbed again. Sophie advised me to ask for help, telling me the employee support program provided free care. After thanking her, I started my dialysis shift. Working with my usual patients felt like nothing else. Mr. Klein, while his machine beeped, showed me photos of his little granddaughter. Mother Brennan, who constantly criticized her daughter-in-law's cooking, was hosting Thanksgiving. James discussed his fishing vacation next month. Their dialysis lasted 25 to 30 years. They planned, they had families, they complained about life. Ethan wasn't being executed, as Mom said. Dialysis 3 times a week was excessive, yes, but it wasn't a death sentence. Later, an unknown caller interrupted my lunch. "Is this me?" a woman asked. When I confirmed, she introduced herself as Veronica, my mom's sister. I hadn't spoken to Veronica since my expulsion 8 years earlier. She sounded scared, not accusing, asking my advice after Mom had told her about Ethan's kidney condition. I told Veronica everything in my car in the hospital parking lot. Mom wanted both kidneys. The harassment. The surgeon denying Mom's claims that transplant workers authorized double contributions. Veronica listened quietly. I heard her breathing long after I finished. Mom lying about physicians' advice wasn't surprising. But I was shocked when Veronica mentioned that my mother had encouraged Ethan's drinking at 18. She bought his first bottle. She'd laughed off Ethan's drinking at family occasions. No one could tell Mom about Ethan, Veronica whispered, even though she knew it would end poorly. My chest tightened. My mom made communication tough, so the family had rejected me. Mom would get mad if somebody mentioned or invited me, ruining the celebration. People stopped asking. It was simpler to get along with Mom than to struggle with her. Veronica spoke softly, regretting it for peace. Sitting apart in our cars, we spoke for over an hour. Veronica remembered Mom controlling guest lists and conversations at all the family occasions I'd missed. She added that numerous family members were unhappy with Mom's nagging, demanding ways, and general conduct, but no one said anything. Mom isolated or ignored opponents until they died, Veronica said. She offered to speak to suspicious relatives. Before we hung up, she stated Mom was wrong, and I was right to defend myself. When relatives, not Daniel or my coworkers, uttered similar things, I felt something new. My first family approval in 12 years. Daniel and I were cooking dinner when the front desk called. Our doorman said my mother was requesting lobby access. My stomach clenched. "Tell her no guests," I said. He asked her to leave, but Mom's voice escalated in the background, ranting about maternal rights and seeing her daughter. The doorman, competent as always, urged her to go, explaining the house didn't want guests. Mom shouted over the phone. Her scream claimed the building staff was preventing her from helping me kill Ethan. Daniel snatched the phone from my shaky fingers and calmly recommended we call the police non-emergency number to document matters. I was scared when Daniel first called the police on my mother. He informed the dispatcher of the situation, gave the address, and asked them to record harassment. Mom was gone by the time cops arrived an hour later. A tired officer, maybe 40, took notes in our living room. I explained the pattern. Workplace stalking, calls to my landlord and boyfriend, tonight's building incident. He nodded, writing everything on his tiny notepad. "This kind of behavior often escalates," he said, and offered a restraining order. He made it sound simple, protocol-based. That night, after the police left, Daniel and I researched restraining orders on his laptop. We reviewed court documents and guidelines, listing every 4-week occurrence. Daniel's spreadsheet now included dates, times, places, Mom's words and actions, hospital events, texts, calls to my job and landlord, and tonight's lobby incident. Seeing the pattern of violence. After years of abuse helped me comprehend this wasn't intricate family drama, despite my claims. Consent was often denied, and intimidation used. The officer's calmness helped me understand. Not dramatic, he had said. He handled it honestly, civilly liable harassment. 4 days later, I was leaving the parking garage after work. Mom was behind my vehicle. She looked awful. Dirty hair, crumpled clothing, heavy eye bags from days of sleeplessness. I debated turning back, seeking the security guard 20 feet away. When she saw me, Mom spoke quickly, a feverish rant about Ethan being her child, about how she couldn't lose him. She understood my past anger, she said, but Ethan shouldn't suffer for family concerns. There were true tears now, and her voice broke. "Mom," I whispered, "Ethan wouldn't die. Dialysis 3 times a week may last decades. Patients on my unit do it frequently." Mom screamed that I was terrible for comparing her son to others. She yelled that dialysis was horrible, that I was damning Ethan to a terrible life, when I could save him with one action. Her voice echoed through the concrete walls of the garage. "Ethan declined my kidney offer," she cried. "She requested dialysis for me, not Ethan." She nodded in agreement. A true sister would give her everything. Her brother deserved nothing. Ethan was harmed, she alleged. She claimed I didn't understand addiction and prioritized my health. Therefore, his drinking wasn't his fault. Suddenly Luke, a security guard, turned. Someone must have reported the yelling, because he was focused on us. He immediately recognized Mom from the hospital's notice. He named her and instructed her to leave the hospital immediately. He interrupted Mom's conversation with her daughter. "If you stay on hospital property, I will call the police," he threatened. His voice was stern but not harsh, showing he wasn't haggling. Mom stared at me like I had betrayed her, then left the garage. Luke followed me to my car, watching me lock the doors. He asked if I was okay and urged me to notify security if I saw her in the hospital again. I sat in my car, shaking, clutching the steering wheel, after thanking him. Mom turned toward the garage exit, her shoes clicking on the pavement. She backed up 10 feet, then spun around furious. "You'll regret this when Ethan dies, and it's all your fault," she cried. "When he's gone, you'll have to live with knowing you could have saved him, but chose yourself instead." The words echoed through the walls. Luke left. He obstructed her view of me. He remained silent till Mom left. Her car began on the bottom level, fading engine noises as she drove away. Luke walked me to my car and waited. "Try rearranging your schedule," he said. "Come and go at different times, use different entrances, that kind of thing." I thanked him and closed my doors, then realized this wasn't embarrassing drama. Security worried about my safety at the hospital because security experts felt my mother was a threat. I drove home on autopilot, my hands gripping the wheel. Daniel was cooking supper when I arrived. "What occurred?" he asked. I told him about Mom in the parking garage and Luke's schedule adjustment idea. "I found a lawyer," Daniel said, bringing out his phone. "I called Mark Sullivan this afternoon after you texted about your mom returning. I was glad to be no longer alone." Daniel called lawyers and researched as I worked. Seeing Mark's restraining order and family court website, I called right away as Daniel made dinner. Mark answered on the third ring with a kind, professional voice. I explained Mom seeking both kidneys, job harassment, and tonight's parking garage incident. After patiently listening, he invited me to meet tomorrow afternoon and asked me to bring my documents, Mom's texts, hospital incident reports, and the police record from her visit to my building. Bring anything that shows a pattern of behavior. The next day after work, I drove to Mark's downtown office. It was early, a modest but neat waiting area with office furniture and periodicals on the coffee table. After a secretary checked me in a tie, emerged 10 minutes later, shook my hand, and led me back to his office. Sitting across from his workstation, I pulled out the folder Daniel and I had made. It contained screenshots of Mom's messages grouped by date, hospital security records from each visit, my apartment building's police report, and the transplant surgeon's statement about the illegal double kidney request. Mark laid everything out on his desk and wrote notes on a yellow legal pad as I described Mom's original demand all the way to last night in the parking garage, asking about Mark, maybe 50, in a suit without witnesses, dates, and Mom's physical violence. After talking, Mark sat back and glanced at his desk documents. "You have an excellent case for a restraining order," he said. "The pattern is clear. Numerous witnesses and documented workplace disruption." Mark explained the process. I felt better when a lawyer indicated my case was strong. Legal authorities would take it seriously. For weeks after we petitioned, the court scheduled a restraining order hearing. I'd testify and provide proof concerning Mom's activities. He'd help me prepare my court testimony. "Given what you've shown me, I'm confident the judge will grant the order," he said. "You have hospital security involved, police reports, workplace complaints, and a clear pattern of escalating behavior." Mark's assurance calmed me. I wasn't mean or theatrical. I was protecting myself from a boundary breaker. We scheduled a hearing preparation meeting for next week. That night, making leftovers, I answered an unknown phone. "Hello." Dad's tired, scratchy voice said, "It's me." After Mom booted me out 12 years ago, Dad had contacted me once. "Mom told me what transpired in the hospital," he said now. "I know she's been out of line, but please reconsider for Ethan." I closed the microwave and placed my hand on the counter. "For Ethan?" I asked. "Where were you, Dad, when Mom expelled me at 20? When I miscarried alone? When I worked 3 jobs to graduate nursing school?" The connection was quiet, but I could hear Dad breathing, could visualize him in my childhood home. "I know I should have spoken up for you back then," he said. "But why not forget the past when Ethan's life is at stake?" "Dad," I said, "Ethan is safe. He gets dialysis 3 times a week. Many patients at my hospital do it." Dad sounded bewildered. "Your mother stated the transplant experts advised her both kidneys would offer Ethan the best chance. 1 kidney may not be enough." I told him. After the transplant surgeon phoned to say double kidney donation is unlawful and impossible, I told Mom she lied. Despite my efforts, the hospital refused. Dad grew quieter. "She said the doctor said that." He hesitated. "Mom lied to you, Dad. She showed me paperwork and everything. She misled Ethan too." Dad didn't say anything for nearly a minute, but I heard him stirring, maybe rising or pacing. "I don't understand all the medical stuff," he said. "So I just trusted your mother to handle the technicalities. I knew Mom was manipulating everyone. Ethan thought the transplant team had authorized removing both my kidneys if I consented. Dad felt the doctors advised it for Ethan's best chance. The whole family, undoubtedly, accepted Mom's version, where I was the greedy villain refusing to rescue my dying brother. Everyone believed her because nobody imagined she'd lie about something so important. "Ethan isn't dying," I repeated. "Dialysis is unpleasant but effective. You can live normally on it. Just 1 kidney transplant is needed. Only living donors offer that." Mom lied about requiring both. I explained how the transplant procedure works, how one healthy kidney from a living donor is typically better than two from a deceased donor because it's fresher. I told him about my patients who'd been on dialysis since the 1990s and had careers, families, and full lives. Dad listened without interrupting, collecting data that contradicted Mom's claims. His voice sounded older than I recalled, worn down by years of letting Mom make all the choices. "I need to figure out what's true," he said. He listened to the facts and said he needed to think about it, not scolding or embarrassing me. One phone conversation didn't erase 12 years of quiet, but maybe Dad was finally seeing through Mom's deception. Or maybe he'd decide it was simpler to believe her story, and I'd never hear from him again. The next week, after Catalina suggested family stress therapist Michaela Fields, I took the elevator to the hospital's staff support program on the 3rd floor. Catalina told me Michaela knew tough family circumstances and wouldn't push reconciliation. In the quiet waiting area with comfortable seats and serene colors, I filled out intake papers regarding my family history and present pressures. Michaela, younger than I expected, maybe 40, came out to receive me in ordinary clothes. Her handshake was warm, and she smiled like she was delighted to meet me. Her office had a couch, 2 chairs, windows facing the parking lot, and a psychology and fiction bookshelf. "Catalina told me a little about your circumstances," Michaela said, holding a notepad. "Why are you here?" I got carried away talking. Mom's kidney request, Ethan's entitlement, the 12-year abandonment, the harassment campaign, and last week's parking garage situation all unfolded. "It sounds like your mother has never seen you as a separate person with your own needs and rights," Michaela said. Rather than fixing or advising me, she said, "It felt like you've always existed in her mind as either an extension of her or a resource for your brother." I thought about that sentence all week, working and sleeping. Michaela urged me to recall other examples of this trend. I saw it everywhere I looked. My mom had me take piano lessons for 3 more years, even though I hated them at 12. She just liked telling people my daughter played. I wanted to attend community college near home, but she pushed me toward expensive universities so she could brag about my acceptance and then refused to help pay for my tuition. After I became pregnant at 20, she kicked me out because having a teenage daughter didn't fit her image. Michaela revealed Mom's kidney requirement matched. She wanted Ethan well again, and she wanted to utilize my body without my consent. She didn't realize removing both kidneys would kill me because my needs hadn't registered. Anything else was selfish self-revolution for her convenience. Understanding the pattern didn't ease the suffering, but it made rejection less weird. "Mom, I wasn't rude." At my second therapy appointment the next week, Michaela inquired about the miscarriage, something I hadn't discussed in years. Daniel knew, but I didn't explain. I got pregnant at 20 while living at home, working part-time at a grocery store, and planning college. Mom was furious, screaming that I was squandering my life, hurting her name, and that everyone would think she raised me poorly. 3 days later, Mom told me to pack and go. She didn't care where or how I managed. Additional shifts let me pay a friend's basement rent. At 12 weeks, I cramped at work. I was bleeding heavily. My emergency room doctor told me I needed surgery to miscarry. Without someone to call, I did everything alone. For days later, I told my mom, and she thought it was excellent, since I wasn't responsible enough to be a mother. After the defeat, she said, my body judged my character for not being ready. I didn't hear from her for 12 years. After informing Michaela, I realized my embarrassment was never mine. I blamed myself for becoming pregnant, worrying out, and miscarrying. I was 20, alone and scared, abandoned by everyone who should have helped me. My loss and Mom's abuse weren't my fault. They failed me, so I bore their shame for a decade. That was my first night of sleep in weeks. Daniel immediately saw I was calmer and didn't react to phone alarms. At his home meal, he discussed it. He said he wanted a real future with me. He'd wanted to offer me to move in before the renal crisis, but he didn't want me to think he was helping. He wanted me to know he didn't fear my family's issues. He'd witnessed the worst. He picked me despite Mom's nagging and Ethan's animosity. We spent hours discussing our ambitions that night. He desired marriage, kids, and a life without my upbringing's turmoil. I had similar goals, but was scared to aspire beyond 20. Daniel clasped my hand across the table and said I deserved good things and loyal partners. I cried with relief, not anguish, for the first time in months and felt better. The late October restraining order hearing was on a cold Tuesday morning. My hands trembled as I held our binder of paperwork when Mark met me outside the courthouse at 8:30. He told me the court would hear all sides and to stay calm and factual no matter what Mom or her lawyer said. After security, the right courtroom was on the third floor. Mom and her lawyer, an older man in a suit, spoke softly on a hallway bench, his head near to her. She looked compassionate in a nice dress, little makeup, and well-styled hair. Mom's face contorted in misery when she saw me, like I had hurt her. I gazed at Mark's serenity. He gripped my shoulder and told me we had facts. But Mom looked so regular and maternal that I worried the court would see her acting instead of the truth. I thought my statistics would reveal a vicious daughter fabricating family strife instead of a harassment victim defending herself. With wooden seats and a judge's platform, the courtroom was smaller than expected. Mom, Mark, and her lawyer sat at different tables. The mid-50s judge, with gray hair and a no-nonsense approach, quickly reviewed the paperwork and invited me to testify. I stood shakily and vowed to be honest. Mark thoughtfully questioned my testimony. I explained how Mom hounded me for refusing both kidneys despite medical impossibility. I described Mom appearing at the hospital during my shifts, her lobby drama, security ordering her out twice, and she sitting outside my car in the parking garage, refusing to go, with the security man interfering. Mark showed screenshots of text messages, call records showing frequency, hospital security statements proving trespassing, and Mom's apartment building police complaint. A pattern made the judge uneasy. The court stiffened when Mark presented the transplant surgeon's evidence that double kidney donation was illegal and that Mom had lied about the medical team's willingness. My mother's lawyer stepped up to cross-examine me gently. He stated I was exaggerating family turmoil into harassment, that my mother was desperate to save her child, and that I was punishing her for past issues. I'd been estranged from my family for 12 years, since my mother kicked me out at 20 and never tried to reconnect. I attended family events without invitation. We mostly clashed about her treatment of me and my brother. Mark stood up for redirect and asked me one simple question while the lawyer tried to make me look like the troubled daughter who created family turmoil. Did I offer my brother one kidney? The legal and medically appropriate option. Mark asked my mother's reaction. I said I needed both kidneys and go on dialysis myself. I said. The judge looked at me like she meant it. Then she asked if she knew it was illegal and would put me on dialysis forever. The judge interrupted Mom's lawyer and repeated the question, her voice sharp. Mom shifted in her seat, her composure cracking. She said the doctors were wrong, that she'd only been exploring all options to save her son, and that any mother would do the same. She never meant to hurt me. She just wanted Ethan to have. The judge cut her off. She asked whether Mom knew bugging me at work might cost me my job. Mom said she was just trying to make me realize how serious the matter was. The judge then asked if entering my residence after being told to stay away was acceptable. Mom flushed and cried, but they were panicked tears as she realized her manipulation wasn't working on someone with authority. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order barring Mom from contacting me directly or through third parties, visiting my workplace or home, or posting about me on social media. She warned of swift arrest and jail time. Mom's face crumpled, and she wept harder, holding her lawyer's arm like she needed physical support. Her lawyer advocated a lighter sentence or fewer restrictions, but the judge was unmoved. She stated the recorded harassment was serious and persistent, that I had a right to feel secure at work and home, and that Mom's actions had violated legal bounds regardless of her reasons. The gavel cracked. Mom couldn't contact me without criminal repercussions. Mark said it was perfect, and Daniel hugged me outside, telling me I did great and it was completed. It was important, but holding the restraining order paperwork on the courtroom steps made me feel heavy, sorrowful, and like something permanent had broken. Daniel took me to a fancy downtown restaurant with good wine and low lighting to celebrate, telling me how brave I was and how proud he was of me for protecting myself. The restraining order confirmed that my mother would never change, apologize, or see me as a person. I was exhausted after the hearing. I picked up my food and drank my wine and tried to feel good about having legal protection, but I couldn't. Daniel noticed and stopped pushing. He reached across the table and held my hand, telling me it was okay to not be okay and that I didn't have to pretend everything was fine just because I won. He knew that guarding yourself from family feels like loss. We finished dinner silently and walked back to his apartment, where I fell asleep on his couch before 9 without even going to bed. 4 days after the judicial hearing, Veronica called as I was getting ready for work. After asking for the medical papers, she told me Dad had confronted Mom about the falsehoods with a strained but resolute voice. The transplant team never indicated both kidneys would offer Ethan a greater chance. And the physicians never said one wouldn't be enough. After learning the truth, Dad was furious, and Veronica said they had their biggest fight ever. He packed a suitcase and came to Veronica's house that night, to stay in her guest room while he resolved things. Veronica said she'd never seen him so angry or dejected. He was seeing 30 years of marriage clearly for the first time and despised it. She told me other family members had been calling her, wondering what happened because Mom's narrative kept changing and nothing made sense. My cousin wanted to know why I was thrown out at 20. I felt strange buttoning my scrubs as Veronica said Mom's long-held story was crumbling, and family members were reaching out to uncover the truth. That afternoon, between appointments, my cousin Olivia, who had spent summers with me before the family split, sent me a long, awkward Facebook message apologizing for believing Mom's statements about me being unstable and greedy. She apologized for not reaching out sooner and suggested we meet for coffee. "No pressure," she wrote. "I understand if you say no." I pondered the message for a while before responding. "Yes," I typed. "I'd appreciate that." The next morning, Catalina summoned me into her office before rounds. I worried one of my patients had a problem, but she grinned and said the hospital management wanted to recognize my approach to Mom. Catalina had written a letter explaining how I'd never let the harassment affect my work, and how I'd continued providing excellent care even when Mom was at the hospital causing scenes. The board would put the commendation in my personnel file and give me a small bonus for maintaining patient care standards during a difficult personal time. Anxious, I arrived early for the coffee meeting with Olivia on my day off and watched people pass by the window. Being praised for surviving my mother's pestering felt strange and gratifying. Olivia looked older than the Facebook photos and tired, like life had worn her down. We hugged awkwardly, ordered drinks, and sat across from each other, unsure how to start. Olivia apologized again for the years of exclusion, saying she'd always questioned Mom's version, but went along rather than make trouble. Olivia asked about me during family functions, but Mom became irate and Dad diverted the subject. She stopped asking because she felt bad about choosing comfort over doing the right thing. We spoke for 2 hours, which was beautiful yet heartbreaking. Olivia left after telling me Ethan was angry about the restraining order and blamed me for tearing the family apart, calling me ugly and harsh. Olivia said Dad was still going to dialysis 3 times a week and ranting about his unjust existence. He wrote on Facebook about selfish siblings who abandon needy family, and subtweeted about me, even though he couldn't name me. He was healthy, stable, and not in danger, but he was upset that his little sister wouldn't assist him. Olivia was honest and told me the transplant team was now searching the National Donor Registry. Olivia confirmed what I already knew from transplantation, but hearing it made it truer. Ethan would get his kidney, but not from me. That week in therapy, Michaela and I explored my complex ideas about protecting myself while watching family relationships break apart. I told her about Dad staying with Veronica, Olivia reaching out, and my strange mix of relief and guilt. Michaela taught me that I wasn't responsible for resolving problems I didn't cause, that Mom's lies and manipulation had been ruining the family before I established boundaries, and that some relationships are too broken to repair. "It's normal to feel bad about the restraining order," Michaela said, "but it doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It just shows you're human, and family relationships are hard, especially poisonous ones." For weeks after the courthouse hearing, Mark phoned to say Dad had contacted him and asked if I'd meet with him alone. "No Mom, no Ethan." Mark said I didn't have to agree to anything, but he recommended a public spot and reminded me I could leave if I felt frightened. I told Mark I'd meet Dad in a downtown coffee shop Saturday morning, neutral ground where we had no history. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat at a corner table with a door view. Despite the warm coffee, my stomach and hands were chilly. Dad came on time, looking older than I recalled. His hair was grayer, his face more wrinkled, and his shoulders stooped like he was carrying a weight. He noticed me and sat across from me without hugging or touching me. We gazed at each other for a long time before he started. He apologized for the decade of silence, not reaching out after I got kicked out, not being there when I miscarried, and missing 12 years of my life because it was easier. He said he chose peace over justice and was ashamed of that. He also admitted he believed Mom's kidney lies because he didn't understand medical stuff and trusted her to handle the details. I couldn't tell him everything was okay or that I had forgiven him, so I watched him look at his coffee cup, trying to find answers. The apology hurt more than if it had been phony, since it meant he knew what he did and chose it nonetheless for 12 years. I inhaled and told him that words were simple and he had a decade to reach out before Ethan needed a kidney. He shook but nodded and kept his eyes down. I promised to rebuild something if he wanted change. Not out of guilt, but devoted to being different. We could meet once a month for coffee and see if trust would return. He looked up, relieved, and accepted immediately. We decided the third Saturday of each month, same coffee shop, same hour. A realistic and safe framework. Daniel and I sat on my couch, his laptop screen lighting up his face as he clicked through photos of vacant rooms. We'd been discussing moving in together for weeks, but tonight it looked real and feasible. He showed me a 2-bedroom with big windows, and I leaned against his shoulder, feeling his solid warmth and thinking about how different this was from my family. With Daniel, I got to choose and build something new instead of fixing something broken. Yes, I said. Let's go look at it this weekend. Daniel saved the listing and kissed my head, giving me hope. I couldn't explain why we needed a house together. At my next therapy session 4 days later, I told Michaela about Dad's apology and our monthly coffee plan. She listened with her usual focus, then noted how much had changed in 2 months since I first called the transplant team. I'd set boundaries with the restraining order, started rebuilding Mom, gotten relationships with Dad and other family members, and now I was planning legal protection through. Michaela said, "You'd gone from terrified and protective to someone who defended herself while being open to healthy relationships." I wasn't conscious of the changes since I was too busy surviving each day. But sitting in her office with the afternoon light shining through the curtains, I realized 2 months earlier, I was terrified and alone. Now Daniel, Mark, Catalina, and even Dad were trying to help me. Not everything was fixed. It probably never would be, but I wasn't drowning anymore. The following week, Veronica invited me to a small family dinner at her house. Dad, my cousin, and a few other relatives wanted to reconnect. Veronica said Mom and Ethan wouldn't be there, and I could leave anytime if it felt wrong. I almost said no because family gatherings had been painful for so long, but her voice made me think this could be different. I agreed, and she sounded happy, telling me to come Saturday at 6 o'clock and bring nothing but myself. On Saturday, the home smelled like roasted chicken and garlic, and Veronica hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years. Dad was uncomfortable in the living room, and my cousin hugged me. After Veronica served supper and everyone started talking, the 6 of us, relatives I hardly recognized, but who remembered me, relaxed. My aunt shared a tale about a Christmas when I was 12, and Mom insisted I sit at the kids' table while Ethan, for years apart, sat with the adults. I heard from people that Mom treated me unfairly. My cousin said she saw Mom give Ethan college money and told me to sort it out myself. She felt bad but didn't know what to say. Mom often stated that others saw the unfairness and brutality and looked away because it was easier. Each story impacted me hard, proving I wasn't dreaming it or being oversensitive. Though I wanted to be angry at them for their silence, for all the years they could have said something, I felt sad for the young me who struggled to be good enough while everyone watched and said nothing. I thanked them for their honesty, but it was too late. At the end of supper, my cousin casually said that Ethan had been matched with a deceased donor and was scheduled for transplant surgery in 4 weeks. I felt glad, and something else. He'd have the kidney he required without risking my health or future. Relief that this would resolve the months-long crisis, but also a hollow sensation that our relationship was destroyed and that even receiving what he wanted wouldn't change how he treated me. I told my cousin I hoped the transplant went well, because I didn't want Ethan to die or suffer. Dad clasped my hand under the table, a modest gesture that meant a lot. The next week at work, Catalina called me into her office and told me the hospital was establishing new family harassment regulations for staff. My case exposed gaps in the hospital's protection processes, which they were fixing. The hospital now has clearer rules about family members, faster complaint response systems, and mandatory recording of threatening relatives. I sat there thinking about how Mom's misdeeds might assist another nurse from having their mother pursue them at work. Catalina stated my experience would help safeguard other healthcare workers in similar situations. For weeks later, Veronica called to say Ethan's transplant went well that morning. I was glad the surgery went well, because I didn't want my brother to die. The replacement kidney was filtering his blood nicely, and the doctor expected he'd be off dialysis in a few months. Transplant patients need lifetime anti-rejection medication. After the medical catastrophe, we both realized some relationships were too fractured to heal. Veronica claimed Ethan was already whining about the hospital food and the uncomfortable bed, which sounded exactly like him. Dad called me that evening to say he'd visited Ethan at the hospital, but Mom had been there too, so he'd kept the visit short. Even though Mom kept calling to come home, he said Veronica's house was giving him space to think clearly for the first time in years. Even though it was hard and lonely, he recognized he'd spent too much time managing Mom's emotions and supporting her worst behaviors and couldn't go back. I told him I was proud of him for holding his boundary, and he became silent and said that meant more than I probably knew. We spoke about our days. After years of nothing, Daniel and I leased a 2-bedroom apartment across town, far enough from my old home to seem like an escape. The walls were white, plain, and neutral like every rental apartment I'd seen. The first weekend, I painted the bedroom a soft blue from a dozen color samples, and Daniel chose gray for the living room to make it feel bigger. We put furniture to fit our lifestyle, not someone else's. I hung pictures of Daniel and me on the walls. Every decision appeared ours, not inherited or influenced by family or a toxic background. Our vacations and dinners, a record of our life together. No family photographs or photos of people who'd ignored me for years. This place was ours, where nobody could demand things or make me feel bad for defending myself. I woke up 4 months after the restraining order to find I'd slept all night without feeling concerned. Catalina had said I delivered good patient care despite personal stress. Daniel and I got into comfortable routines, preparing supper most nights and talking about our days without family conflict. After discovering Mom's demands, I started reconnecting with cousins and extended family over coffee or lunch. It was awkward at first, but it got easier as we built new relationships based on honesty rather than Mom's carefully controlled narrative. My cousin invited me to her daughter's birthday party, my first family event in over a decade. Instead of waiting for the next crisis or harassing occurrence, I brought a gift and spent 2 hours with relatives who apologized for believing Mom's lies and rejecting me. Dad and I met for coffee on the first Saturday of every month at the same downtown cafe where we could talk uninterrupted. He always arrived on time, which may seem easy, but it was crucial given his history of prioritizing Mom's comfort above mine. During these coffee encounters, he said he should have protected me when I was younger, stood up to Mom when she booted me out, and reached out during the 12 years of quiet. We would have been better off if Dad had been a better parent from the start, but our connection was becoming genuine and honest instead of the dream relationship I sought as a kid. He cared about my life, remembered facts from earlier talks, and accepted my boundaries when I didn't want to talk about Mom or Ethan. The monthly coffee session seemed like beginning again rather than healing something that had always been broken. I sat in the flat Daniel and I created together, looking at the blue bedroom walls and our life photos and realizing something had changed inside me. I didn't need Mom's approval or Ethan's gratitude or acknowledgement that his expectations were unreasonable to know I'd made the right choice, protecting my health and refusing an illegal demand. Daniel, Catalina, Michaela, Mark, and even these new family members respected my boundaries and treated me like a person, not a resource. The restraining order protected me, and I carefully documented everything in case Mom tried anything else. I had created a life where my needs and voice were heard. I let some family relationships die because they were toxic and one-sided. Others improved over time, based on honesty and mutual respect instead of blame and guilt. Dad was trying to change, so I let him show his dedication. It's incredible how much your life can shift when you finally stand up for yourself. This journey was painful, but it taught me so much about boundaries, self-worth, and what true family really means. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with someone you love, even when it hurt? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.